Alright, so it's time to put in the new suspension. Today, we're lifting the 80 series. We've got new shocks, new springs, wheels and tyres. What's the most common tyre size you're fitting on 4Bs these days? Just because whenever you lift a 4B, Liam and I are doing the entire lift from home, from pressing the bushes to fitting the arms and installing the shiny new suspension. How high we'll lift it, you'll have to wait to find out. Alright, welcome back to Aussie Arvos. Today is a big day for us because, well, the 80's getting a suspension lift and it's getting new tyres and new rims. So, huge day. I've got Liam here giving me a hand. But first, before we get into it, anyone who didn't order merch throughout the pre-order period, you're in luck. We've got some leftover stuff and for a limited time, there's going to be merch available on the website. But like, there's seriously not much at all. Like, minimal hoodies and minimal t-shirts and minimal sizes. So there's not a heap on there. So if you want something, get in quick because it'll probably go really fast. But if you do want to get merch, here's your chance, because I don't know when it's coming back, so it might be a while. So yeah, get in now, get some merch, but let's get straight into the lift. I'll show you guys what we'll be dealing with. Fulcrum's hooked us up with a suspension package. We're going a 2-inch lift in the 80. We're going for cast correction bushes, just for budget reasons. And then we've got new set of springs, new shocks, and a steering dampener. So I'll get into specifics on what detail spring loads we're running and everything, and what type of shocks we got. But we'll do all that later. But first, we've taken our measurements. So we're gonna see how far it actually lifts the 80 up. But yeah, pretty much gonna jack it up. Well, pretty much gonna lift it up on our new hoist. This is the first time working on the hoist really, isn't it? In the video. Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna basically lift it up. Because we don't have a transmission jack, we're gonna have to sort of lower it back down and use a manual jack to jack up the diff to support us to when we take the radius arms out. Because we're gonna need to take those radius arms out, put in those new bushes, and we should be able to hopefully press them in at home. We've got a press thing, so hopefully we should be able to press them in. And yeah, hopefully it should all turn out all right. So I'm excited. Let's just get into it and see how it goes. So currently my 80 just is a standard old sag suspension setup, so we are expecting some decent gains from the lift. I'll tell you more info about the wheels and tyres and the rims that I've chosen. That's probably the hardest decision of this entire lift, was making those choices, but let's just get them off for now, and then we'll work out how we're gonna go about actually supporting this diff. Makes it so much easier getting tyres off with a bloody hoist, doesn't it? Alright, so we've got the car up now on the hoist. Our next task is obviously getting these radius arms out.
We're going to do the radius arms first, so that way we can pull them out, put them back in, and then, because obviously at the moment, when you drop the diff down, essentially all the weight is actually on the shock, because the shocks bottom out before anything else. Like, if there was no shocks, this would just continue to drop, sort of thing. We've got it supported, so we're thinking that'll be alright, although it's sort of hard because you can't sit it exactly in the center because there's a diff pumpkin there, and because it's not evenly weighted because of the diff pumpkin. We're just gonna have to sort of watch it, but we should be able to crack all these at the very least and then drop it down if need be, or I reckon we'll give it a shot of we'll crack it all and pull it out while it's supported by this. And I think that should be enough to just get the radius arms out back in, and then the rest should be easy.
Yeah. Boom. Are they heavy? Nah, not too bad. So that's the radius arm out of the 80. They actually come out pretty quickly because there's no sway bar to remove, there's no tie rod to remove, so they come out pretty quick. So the reason we're doing cast correction is because whenever you lift a 4B, your radius arm is going to go up because your chassis is going to be higher. So that's going to make your diff want to lean more forward, which is your caster. So we're putting in cast correction bushes basically to adjust that, to offset that. You can get, look, this is the budget way to do it. It's not the best way to do it. You can get drop boxes, which drop boxes allow that end of the radius arm to come down a bit more, so you don't have to do that end to the bushes. You can actually get, Fulcrum do like actual arms themselves, so you can get arms actually designed for that lift. You can do caster correction plates as well, but cast correction bushes is the easiest and the most affordable. Actually, it's not the easiest. Getting brand new arms is the easiest, but it is the most affordable.
So I'm thinking something like that, but then we'll just need something to push it.
Alright, so it's time to get our radius arm bushes out. So what we're using is essentially just a puller. Is that what you call it, Liam?
Yes, it's just a bearing puller kit.
And what size socket are we running?
It's a 1 11/16 inch, which is like the closest we can find. That we have.
So if you don't have a bearing puller, you can just take it down to like a local shop and they'll press it out for you and press the new ones in. That's what we did when we got Dan's done. But we got one here. We figured we'll try this and give it a crack and see how it goes.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's coming out.
Oh, yeah.
I just need to start.
Yeah. Yeah, she's coming. So we've just gone ahead and taken the other radius arm out. Essentially how we did that, we just strapped it just for safety, but the weight's all still being held off this single point here. So it didn't move at all when we took out the second radius arm. Obviously the weight's being held by that, well, and the shocks as well. So yeah, that's the way to do it. So we'll just deal with right now getting the new bushes into the radius arms, and then we can go ahead and work on our shocks and springs. Alright, so we've got all our old bushes out, so now we're putting in the new caster corrected bushes. As you'll see, they're very off-centered. That's to basically allow for the 2-inch lift. So you've got a template which comes with the lift. So essentially you just got to mark up, as you see, you put in little marks here, where that offset's meant to go. So it's pretty easy. You line it up and then you just press it in. We're going to use the vise, but yeah, you could, again, if you didn't have any of this equipment, you just go down to your local shop, you give them the template, you show them where you want it pushed in, and they'd probably do it for you. But yeah, we'll mark them up and get these new bushes pressed in. So just a disclaimer on this, you shouldn't really use a vise because if it is a weak vise, it will literally break your vise. But this is a pretty big vise, so it's...
Yeah, I press in all my bearings on my car with this.
Yeah.
It's a Dawn massive thing, so...
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So you might have seen that first bushing was just so hard to get in. Like first hitting the vise couldn't do it, now vise is huge. Then we made a separate little box, couldn't do it. It literally just started to tear the welds. Thirdly, we made this custom huge plated steel press.
I think very slow, but I reckon it'll just go tink and just go all at once, I reckon. Yeah.
You reckon a little bit more?
No, it needs to go more.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it goes. Yeah, I think that's it. Undo it. It did actually dent in that metal. Holy shit.
And even that, when without a plate, it started actually piercing and pushing up the metal. Look how thick that is. So what we've been using now is actually a bit of rubber grease just on the outside of the bushing, basically just to help it get in.
Because a lot of time you push these in dry because obviously you don't want this to move.
No, we're exactly right.
But because of how tight they do actually go in, a tiniest bit of grease, by the time they go in that tight, they're not going to move anyway. It's literally just to help them slide in, because what was happening is it was jumping as opposed to going in like uniformly. It would go jump, 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 and then you couldn't get it aligned.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Just to prevent that.
All right, so now all our caster corrected bushes are into the radius arm. So now the next thing we're going to put in is the crush tubes. So these you are meant to use grease. Actually supply an insulation grease in a little bag that comes with it. And then these will basically slip into these holes there. So we get grease in and get pushing.
Yeah. Right, now push it all the way. Oh, they're easy.
Yeah, so they're easy. Just as long as you get grease on them, beautiful. Yep. All right, so crush tubes are in the radius arms and they're ready to go back in the car. So our next step now, put them in and then we'll start dealing with the shocks and the springs. So yeah, that's good. This is where the fun begins. We don't have to use a press anymore. We can actually use nuts and bolts. So let's get into it. So because these are cast corrected now of those bushes, it will be a little bit hard to get it back in because currently it's not. Diff isn't sitting in this position that it's going to be sitting when it's got the lift.
Because it's on the hoist, obviously when you lift it up, whole thing rotates forward.
Exactly. So there'll be a little bit of wiggling to get it in.
Or we might have to use some jacks or something, or think of something.
We'll see how it goes. We'll just give it a crack and see how.
Alright, one in. Yep.
Alright, so I've got 2 of the bolts in for the radius arm. We're still going to get that one in, which we're going to do once we bring it down and it's adjusted properly. But since it's all in and it's all like stable, we're going to use the opportunity now to bring it down a bit, do the shocks and the springs, and then once we got the new stuff in, we'll bring it down, get this perfect, get the diff position perfect, and put that last bolt in. And then should be good for the front. So
get this out.
Bring it up, get that off, and then we can bring it down and start doing the springs and shocks. So let's get on to that now. So much easier.
You lower it down and I'll tell you to stop, and
Yeah.
then I'll line them up, and then we can
Go
drop it
down.
on. Yeah, keep coming, and stop. Perfect.
All right, so we've opened up the bonnet, we've brought the car down. So what we're gonna start doing is taking off the shocks. So on the 80 series, to access the shocks, the top of the shocks is via the engine bay. So got Liam in there now, get that first shock out. We yet to put in that third bolt for the radius arms, but we'll do that in a minute. First, just wanna get these shocks out, get the springs out, and put in the new suspension. So go get doing that now.
That's the bottom. That goes on top of there like that.
Oh well.
So now you should be able to.
Do you want to take out
side,
that? Yeah, so get that spring
get
out.
this spring out.
All right, so we've got both shocks out now, and what we're gonna do, I've just taken off the diff breather because we're gonna lower the front axle as much as we can so we can get these springs out without the use of a spring compressor. They're already pretty loose, as you can tell, but we're gonna just go down on both jacks and make them even looser.
This is where you see the limits of your shocks.
Yeah, well that's it, yeah.
So there you go. So that's full droop there.
Yeah.
Bloody easy, mate.
Beautiful.
Alright, well I suppose now we unpackage.
Yeah, we get the new suspension out. All right, so it's time to put in the new suspension. So Fulcrum's hooked us up with suspension setup for this car. It's very similar to what Dan runs on his GQ. So forming the 4x4 shocks, we got the big bores here. So them for the front, and then King springs also for the front. So because I've got a steel bull bar and a winch, I think it's about 100 kilo rated load on the constants on the front. And for the rear, I've gone 300 to 500 because I'm putting something on the back of it. You'll see soon. So that's sort of what's made me pick my weightage. So it's definitely gonna be at least 2 inches because this spring's obviously softened up over time. So putting a brand new one in, we'll definitely see 2 inches and probably even more. So yeah, let's go get these in the car and then see how the front sits. And because these big bore shocks have a boot on the outside, that's how they keep all dust debris from coming in. You want to cable tie the top and bottom. We'll go cable tie the top now before you even put them in the car, but once we get it in the car and see what height we sit at, we'll do the bottom. So we don't have a spring compressor. Let's see how we go.
I don't want to scratch it up, but I have to get it to that open bit.
Yeah, it's alright, don't worry.
We might need it.
We might need it after all.
Or actually,
oh,
front tail shaft's on the
sway bar. We could take out the sway bar. So because we didn't have enough clearance to get that spring in, we're removing the sway bar to give us a bit more room just so we can drop the axle down even further and then hopefully get the spring in without compressors. So, see how it goes. Sway bar disconnected. Liam's about to put more droop on this. Let's see if it goes under. How much lower it can get.
Oh, maybe not that much.
Oh,
Oh no, definitely
heat more on that side, yeah.
What the hell is that side? Oh, it might be the panhard.
Yeah, panhard's the restricting factor. Yeah. Did it go down a little bit, at least?
Oh, what we might be able to do, if you just put a bit of weight on that end while I sit the spring in.
Okay, yeah.
It will move.
Yeah.
Alright, let's see if we can get this in. Oh yeah, it's already way better.
Come on, bud.
We'll get the other spring in.
Yeah.
Oh, it's drooped. And then you just gotta do up the jacks, compress, then you can put your shocks in.
Yeah, beautiful.
Easy.
All right, so now it's time to put the shock in. Dan's run through how to put these shocks in before, so you probably won't cover it again, but you basically just don't want metal on metal. You want the bushes to work as when the shock does flex, it's only bush that's touching.
Bush to metal, yeah.
Bush to metal. You don't want metal to metal, essentially.
Yeah.
So all the shocks are now in, so what we're gonna do is take out the jacks, let it droop a bit, and we'll play around with the diff to get in our last bolt on our radius arms. Radius arms fully back in, all bolts in. So front shocks, front springs, front radius arms, all installed. Go put that sway bar back on, diff breather back on, and then we're good for the front. So just like the front, we're taking out the sway bars to get as much droop as possible to get the new springs in. We gotta get the old springs out pretty easily, but we wanna get the axle as low as we can to be able to get the new bigger springs in. Yeah.
How dirty they are, they're filthy.
They are filthy. So once again to the rear, big bore shocks, King springs. These are 300 to 500 constants. So we'll go and get them in. All right, other side. All right, so all the suspension's in. We've just reattached to the front sway bar, and now while we've got the car jacked up still, we're gonna put in our new steering dampener. So I've got a Formula 404 steering dampener supplied in the kit. So that'll be going on there, which looks nice and colourful, but it's looking shiny as. So hopefully we're not too far away from getting this thing actually on the ground. So steering damper's in, suspension's all in. Now it's time for tyres and rims. So we're gonna head down to Treadworks in Lilydale to see Nathan, because we've got new tyres and new rims going on the 80. So let's go down there and see what we got. All right, so tyres loaded on the back. We're heading down to Treadworks at Lilydale to see Nathan. We're gonna get these tyres fitted up to some new rims he sorted out for me. So let's get there and see how they look. Got a little something for you, Nathan, just to help us out.
Oh, champion. Or legend.
No worries. All right, so we're at Treadworks in Lilydale. Nathan's helping us out, get the tyres fitted. So got 5 tyres going on today onto the 80, so I'm pretty stoked to get them on. I'll talk to you about tyre size and rim choice and all that, because I think this is probably the hardest decision of the whole lift and tyre thing, was actually picking what tyres and what size we're gonna use. So walk through all that, but first, Dave's gonna help us get them fitted, and he got some new rims too he's hooked us up with, so let's go check them out. So I've gone the mud tyre. I'll talk a bit more about the reef things in a bit, it's pretty loud here, but we have gone the Windforce mud tyre on the 80 series, so same mud tyre I had on the 80 series beforehand, just obviously we're in a 285 now, so we're on a bigger size tyre, so 33s. What's the most common tyre size you're fitting on 4Bs these days? Like, what?
Look, it'd be a bit of a toss-up between these, the 285 75 16s and 265 75 16. Some of the more aggressive all-terrains now, moving into a bit of a trend where a lot of one size bigger than the OE and 18 inch stuff.
Yeah.
People can get that sort of, I can go camping without lifting it. And
Yeah. And you see muddies come more popular, like more people choosing this to go muddies rather than ATs, or is there still an AT market out there, you feel like?
No, if anything, it's gone the other way. So probably seeing 2 to 1 with the new ATs versus the muddies.
Yeah, right.
Because really, they're doing everything a muddy does just as well, if not better.
Yeah.
With the exception of like Talangi bog hole stuff.
Yeah.
So if you're not dragging your brand new 62 or brand new SR5 through that sort of stuff, which a lot of people aren't, doesn't make sense to go a muddy.
Right.
But yeah.
For the wheels, Nathan hooked us up with a set of extreme 4x4 steel rims. These are a 16x8 in a neg 13.
You know, you're seeing some of the cheapo ones and stuff around the seam, where that's just a sort of nice, clean, overlapping sort of line. You get like a big, you can see the grind marks where they've sort of angle grinded the weld down and that sort of stuff. And because the center is, and the outer is sort of like bent and pressed steel and stuff, you'll always get a certain amount of run out, where we find that we get very little. So, you know, balancing quality is a little bit nicer and that sort of thing. Like I said, we sell thousands of these. We've had no returns, no issues. Where some of the other stuff, you get the odd one here and there. So once again, a huge thank you to Nathan at Treadworks. We highly recommend him if you're looking for new tyres or suspension. All of us boys take our cars there, and he's the absolute gun. So big thanks to Nathan. Once again, you're a legend. So we ended up going the 285 75 R16 mud tyre. This is the exact same mud tyre which I was running on the Landcruiser beforehand. They're a Windforce Catch 4's mud terrain tyre. This was a 32 inch or a 265 75 R16 I was running, and now it's a 285. So essentially what a 285 means compared to a 265 is you're going 20 mil wider. And a 30 mil greater diameter, resulting in about half an inch of lift. Yeah, same style, same Windforce muddy, hopefully same performance. I will actually show you, this tyre's done 25,000 Ks. This one's obviously brand new. I'll quickly check the measurements. 8 mil left on that, and 12 mil left on that. So, you've lost 4 mil over about 25,000 Ks, which I haven't done the most extreme driving in the world, but I have driven to a lot of places and do a lot of dirt roads, and I mean, it's actually held up pretty well considering. When I received these tyres from Windforce a year ago to try out, I wasn't too sure on how long they were gonna last, especially being a mud terrain. But after a year of use, you can see that they really haven't worn too bad. And for about 140, 150 bucks a tyre, if you're wanting a mud terrain, but you're tight on money, these are honestly a pretty good option.
He did it!
We have some 4B content coming soon, so you'll actually be able to see them in action, but for the price, I just don't think you can really beat them. Like, I reckon I could have pushed into 40,000 Ks, maybe even more if I didn't get the 33s. And I think for a mud terrain, especially an affordable mud terrain, that's pretty damn good. No punches, no dramas with them so far. So got the 33s on for the new set, so it should look really good. And for the rims, these are an extreme 4x4 16x8 rim on a -13 offset. Now that was really hard sort of deciding what offset I wanted, because a lot of people with 80 say go -22. But I mean, ideally you want the least amount of offset as you can possibly have, because the further offset you are off the actual hub, which means your bearing is going to wear faster. So minimize your offset if possible, but obviously, you know, -44 offset looks cool. But yeah, -13 is I think a good compromise where it's still going to look good. It's still going to be legal. It's going to be in between the guards. So yeah, that should be all sweet. But yeah, so I was really leaning towards the 305s like what Dan has on his GQ, because the wider tire is pretty cool. But I ended up just going 285 only because they're a common tire. I could get them in a muddy, and I just think, yeah, it'll still look good and it'll perform bloody awesome. So let's get on the car and see how it looks with the new wheels and tires on. And look, there's not a huge difference between 32 inches and 33 inches, but I think I wanted it to just be proportional to the lift. So I was gonna keep the 265s on, but because I still think 265 is a great tire and they're decent size. Like, you really don't need much bigger for touring. But I think the 285 is just gonna feel the guards a bit better now that I'm putting on a 2-inch lift. So all the wheels are on. Time for the most important part. Drop the car and see where it sits. So we're all good to drop.
For those of you that are probably freaking out, obviously with suspension, you have to drop everything onto the weight of the car before you can torque everything up. So all the suspension, all the wheels, nuts and that, put the weight of the car on it, and then we'll go around with a torque wrench to torque everything in the spec.
Yep.
So, but we've got to drop it down first. So we've just done everything up, just nipped it so that it's not going to go anywhere. And now we'll drop it and torque it up.
That's it. All right, let's see where she sits. Way higher. All right, so we have the results of how high it lifted the Landcruiser. So in the front, it lifted it 2.5 inches. So we went from 900 mil up to 970 mils. Now the front's pretty even. We've got a 5 mil difference on the driver's and passenger side, so pretty much dead on. And then on the rear, we lifted it about nearly 4 inches, about 3.5 inches. And that's because, well, one, it's rated for a 300 to 500 kilo payload, and obviously there's not a lot of weight in the back right now, so that's why it is a lot higher in the back. But it's absolutely dead level between the driver's side and the passenger side. So another thing, I am thinking of putting in adjustable panhard rods, because the way it's tracking right now, the tires are sticking out a little bit on the driver's side in comparison to the passenger side, especially in the rear there, because it's up 3.5 inches from what it was. Obviously how a panhard rod works, if you're going to raise it, it's going to want to throw your axle out to one side. So I'm going to get adjustable panhard rods for the front and rear just to fix that track, and then probably go extended sway bar links on the rear as well, just to get a bit more flex out of it, because now with the new shocks in, it's definitely got a lot more flex. So yeah, get some of them and then ready to rock and roll. It's going to be so good. So anyway, we'll take it for a drive. We'll head down some little 4B tracks we've got down the road, and we'll see how it goes. So let's go do it. Alright, so it's the first time in the 80 with the new suspension. Already feels a heap firmer compared to my old stuff. Like, just definitely like a lot more. You hit a bump, it sort of doesn't shake around as much. Like, it's really, I guess it's firm. Like, it holds the spot on the road a lot better. Definitely feel higher. You notice it. Like, you feel up there a bit. But nah, it's behaving good so far. So we've been here before, but there's a few little tracks here that we're able to test out the suspension on. They're surprisingly not bad for literally 2 minutes down the road, just on the side of the main road. So Patty's going to try a few out. We're going to test the suspension out, so I'll quickly run up the top. Oh, it's going to be fun. It's pretty steep. So as you can see, it's bloody insane just how flexy coils are. Like I've been, we've been doing 4BM with leaf springs. I had obviously rear coils on the rear bar, I had torsion bar front end. To go to a car that's 4-wheel coil, like look, like it's insane the amount of flex you get. It's just...
and even stuff like these, cameras never do it justice, but these are like, a lot of people look at this and say, oh, that's pretty, like, you know, it's a fairly good steep gradient.
Yeah.
And there's a couple little like wombatty dippy sections. And even I was like, oh, you'll probably like, I was like, oh, the LSD in these aren't that good. You'll probably start like spinning one wheel. And it just literally walked up where I know my car would be like, yeah, I'd be leaf hangering out and I'd be like having one wheel spin, I reckon. So
yeah, not lifting wheels and everything. It's so less sketchy.
It definitely, makes a huge difference having the coils and like full travel shocks. Not that, and these aren't even anything crazy. It's 2 inches, so it's very
look
basic.
What it's like. Let's look at
Which
what, like, it's just, I don't know. It's
a lot of people would do a lot more. So
100%.
I couldn't even imagine like what a heat more flex is. Like this isn't it. We had actually a bit better than this on the other side, but
yeah. And 33s. Look, I probably. If you wanted to put 35s on, I reckon you
definitely could.
You could. There's
Definitely
room for them, but people do say at max articulation, I reckon you would scrub a tiny bit.
Yeah, probably.
But I mean, I'd have to be doing some gnarly stuff to have the 285s not be able to do it for me. You know?
Yeah, that's
doing
it.
some pretty.
Yeah, you got to be doing like you want. If your car's purely designed to go and smash Talangi and you know.
Yeah. Well.
All that Craig go to I don't know Glass House or bloody Coffs Harbour, whatever they do. Yeah, obviously 35s are probably the go, but
yeah.
For what we're going to be doing, I think this will be more than adequate.
This will be perfect. So just like I say, a huge thank you to everyone who made this episode possible. So thanks to Fulcrum for supplying suspension. I'm loving it. Can't wait to use it. And if you guys don't have the tools or the equipment to do it, they do offer a click and fit system where you can go online, order it, and then pay to get someone to fit it. So they have a qualified fitter and they'll fit it up. Huge thanks to Nathan at Treadwork once again. He's been a legend, always helps us out, help me pick and tire size, help me do the rims and everything, get them all fitted. Huge thanks to Nathan. And thanks to Windforce for hooking me up with the Windforce Catchforce mud terrains. I've got 5 of them on the 80 now, so one will be sitting on the back shortly. That's another, hopefully, episode. But yeah, huge thanks to all our sponsors who help us out, make these videos possible. I can't wait to get out here and actually test the gear and start taking it off-road. So we've got an exciting few months coming up in Aussie Arvos once we get our lockdown, which hopefully should be very soon. But yeah, thanks so much for everyone watching. You make this all happen. You make this all possible. So cheers guys, have a good one. And before you go, I want to mention merchandise. So if you missed out on the pre-order period, we've got Aussie Arvos merch available right now on the website. We got it, it's sitting at home, we shipped out immediately the next business day. So if you want to help support the channel, pick up some merch on the website. It means a lot. There's not many sizes though, so limited sizing and limited quantities. So get in while you can. Cheers guys, have a bloody good one. We'll see you out there.